Our world is facing all kinds of new problems that have never existed before. We are living in a time of change, truly, and it's fast change. And so, while our world needs new solutions for new problems in every industry, we know that our associations are poised to collaborate and work together, and that is more important than ever before. We've been doing this by providing communities all along the way. So, this week, we're going to take a look at community and how to best position it as a benefit and an opportunity so that members and prospective members can see the value in their engagement, whether it be as volunteer, board member, chapter member, or something else entirely. So, this isn't going to be just me talking. To help us do that, we are talking with our guest today, our guest expert, Rachel Sheerin, who is an international keynote speaker and trainer who is dedicated to helping us all grow, sell, and thrive. She was recently named Speaker of the Year by NACE. Do you pronounce it NACE? NACE, yes?
Nice. Yeah.
Yes. And she was featured in Inc. magazine. Rachel's high energy keynotes and programs have served conference and annual meeting audiences from Spain to Seattle and will soon be seen on the TEDx stage. Rachel's keynotes and trainings have been raved about by a lot of awesome associations like MPI, ESPA, WRPA, and more. And her corporate clients, these are people like the Ritz-Carlton, Hilton, Berkshire Hathaway, and more. Love her. And I can honestly tell you that in talking with her before this, you guys, I got so excited that I already ahead of time, and she'll confirm this, preemptively asked her if she would do more than one. So we're going to figure out a part
I'm
two to this.
committed, Kiki.
Yes, she's committed. She's signed on. But I want to officially welcome Rachel to the show. Thank you for coming on and talking to us today.
Thanks for having me, Kiki. I got to tell you,
Yay.
I'm so glad Kathy's here. Since you have come into my world, I have heard so many praises. Hello, award-winning Kiki Association Chat. I'm just pumped to be here with you guys. So thanks for
Oh my
having me.
gosh. Okay. Whoa. I usually don't have it turned back on me. Thank you for that shine. I really appreciate it. So where are people going wrong? When we talk about the word selling, it has this connotation with it, and people like me get a little bit nervous and scared about it. Where do people go wrong when they first approach selling?
Well, I think that from a perspective of selling, whether you're, professional salesperson, you're an association, superstar, all across the board, that people really run the gamut because we intrinsically sell for our reasons
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not their reasons. And so that could be something, for example, just as easy as saying that I think the best reason to go to a restaurant is the taste of the food, right? I think
Mm,
that it's so delicious. Whereas other people may appreciate the quality of service or the consistency, that they don't have crazy hours. They can always rely at them to open up at 5 p.m. Other people might like it because it's a quick service restaurant, that it's very speedy and you don't have to waste a lot of time. And other people might appreciate maybe the fine details they take on the food, that, it's maybe technically perfect. I got to tell you, I'm not big on technically perfect. I just like to eat food with friendly service. And
yeah.
so I see folks, selling, and that's a very natural way to sell.
Hmm.
But the second thing to that would be that I think a lot of times, to your point, we hear selling and we think nasty word.
Hmm.
I think a lot of times too, when I meet the people in associations who have such a huge heart, they didn't get into it to sell. They didn't get into it to make $1 billion. Nonprofits normally pay that way. But I will say that, selling to me, I really cut out that word a lot of the times and I call it advocating.
Hmm.
Selling is advocating means that I get to advocate my best ideas to you.
Hmm.
Or a first date is also a sale, right? If we're on a date, I want you to like me, you want me to like you. And,
Yeah.
and this is that trust relationship that's so important to our industry.
Yeah, trust is such a key. And I know that when we had our initial conversation, and probably a lot of people who are watching right now know that I kind of geek out over this whole subject of trust. But, it certainly seems like it's important that from the first conversation or first touch point that you have with someone, that you are coming through in an authentic way so that you're not sort of trying to slide in a sale when on the top of it it seems like you're trying to build this relationship. And I think that that's kind of a weird gray zone. I think people get lost in some of that human part of interacting because they just want to get to that conversion. Is that
Mhm.
right? Do you see that the same way?
Yeah, 1,000%. The
Yeah.
second we put the word selling on something, all of us
Hmm.
are like, and especially too when you kind of equate sales to money. And,
Hmm.
selling a
Hmm.
membership, for example, could be, or a sponsorship is about money, but it's just this icky idea of, sometime when we're 4 or 5 years old, somebody tells us not to ask questions.
Yeah.
And especially because a lot of us are people pleasers, we don't want to inconvenience people.
Yeah.
But I like to think about selling the way I think about my nieces and nephews, getting them to eat vegetables. I believe and know for a fact that if you eat your vegetables, you will be stronger. And I want them to be strong and I want them to be healthy. And so that's where I can do the airplane noises to get them. I can hide it in crescent rolls because I'm not that
Mhm.
great of a cook. I can
Mhm.
do a lot of things to advocate for them. And that's honestly, if we can shift our mindset of selling to be the loving helper that I think a lot of us are, then, why wouldn't people adopt? Like, we owe the world to advocate our best ideas. Could you imagine if people actually did what we knew what was best for them?
Yes.
It would change the world.
So I have to say, we have some great comments coming in, and someone who I just adore him. Actually, there are two hymns that I adore who I have to talk about their comments right now. One is in the questions area. John said, "I love sales. My grandfather taught me if it has 4 zeros, shake a hand, and if it has 5 zeros, see the guy's office." And so I really, really
That's great.
appreciated that one. Yeah. And
That's
then
great.
he also says, buy better fresh produce. I can help. Yeah. So he's with the United Fresh Produce Association. And that is awesome. Scott, who is a dear, dear friend, and we've done a lot of presentations together, and he had the audacity to move off to California recently so that we can't get
Rude.
together for coffee. I know, so rude. Authenticity is really important, he says. Salespeople get a bad rap when the only thing they care about is completing the sale. Yeah. And it's like sometimes, and you know what that's like when you're having the conversation and you can actually see dollar signs in the other person's eyes. Like, is this person
Yes.
on the hook? And you're like, no, no, come back to our conversation. Please, let's interact as people right now. Yeah.
1,000%. To that point too, Scott, I will say, I mean, 1,000% on the authenticity. I love waving your freak flag and being memorable. People can smell when you are faking it, even though we're really good fakers. When people come up to us and are like, oh, hi, I need this right now. And you want to be like, I emailed you about this 4 months ago. That you're,
Hmm.
on our face, we're faking it really well. When it comes to faking the sale, it really is, it turns off people. And I always challenge folks out there listening and watching to think, if you don't like those fake salespeople, then it's
Hmm.
up to you to be the great salespeople. Like, you're the one blazing the trail and showing people a better way to do it. And that's what we're talking about today.
So walk me through what this might look like, because for a lot of us, and we were talking a little bit before the show about like boards and stuff like that. I mean, what is it that we need to keep in mind when we're going in and making some of these interactions with people? If it's not conversion and sale, and like, how do I make sure that they're on the hook? What is it that we need to be? Where do we need to be? What do we need to be thinking through?
Well, I always think that, especially with, a nonprofit or a servant heart, as I like to call it,
Yeah.
all of us here are in the business of serving other people, and we really like it. And so if we're so obsessed with serving other people, that's why a lot of times I go back to my behavior profiling. I'm a behavior analyst. That's part of
Mm-hmm.
my weird background. And I put people into four categories. And it's simple. I joke, you can go home and tell your kids about it, but I ask two questions. What pace are people,
Mm-hmm.
and what's their focus? Now, let's take pace,
Yeah.
fast paced and slow paced. I am a fast paced person. Kiki, you're a fast paced person. Our conversation, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
We're very efficient in it.
Yeah.
Fast paced people, they operate at the speed of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Typically that's about 50% of the population. Slower paced folks, very steady. They do this weird thing. They think, then they talk. I talk to
Well,
think. I talk to think. So they do that a lot. And honestly, that's a lot of who, at least I see, fast paced, slow pace can be very differentiated by gender a lot of the
mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Slower paced people occasionally can be more women oriented. We'll
Mm-hmm.
see them in things like teachers and nurses. If you think the word patient, they tend to be slower paced.
Mm-hmm.
If you do think more of that rapid fire uh, pace, and what's great about pace is you can see it. People can wear this. You know that I'm fast paced by this.
Yeah.
Now, the focus side is, are people focused, or are
Okay.
they task focused? Now,
Interesting.
people focused and task focused, when I do a keynote or a team building on this, I divide up the rooms. I say extroverts over here and introverts over here. And then while they're in those groups, I divide them up and I say the people who would rather go to a lunch meeting, I want you to, keep on your sides and go, separate. The people who'd rather get their to-do list done, separate even more. So you have people who would much rather be connective, having a relationship. They love water cooler talk. They remember your kids and your dogs and, those like very meaningful parts of your life.
Mm-hmm.
They always ask, how are you?
Mm-hmm.
And good morning, and mean it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
task-based people, those are the people that walk into the office and they're just getting right to work, not because they don't care about people. It's
Mm-hmm.
just their focus is getting to their task. These are folks that tend to have calendars organized and color coded, and they love Excel and spreadsheets. And they tend to be those people that catch all the details.
Yeah.
And when you understand that there's four quadrants of people, and I can share this with your viewers later in a worksheet, but fast-paced, task-oriented folks, fast-paced, people-oriented folks, slow-paced people, people-oriented, and slow-paced, task-oriented, those four behavior styles, that I think is a key to understanding. It's less about mirroring someone, which I think is kind of sales 101, and
Yeah.
it's more
Yeah.
about seeing somebody and hearing somebody and watching the way they approach you and say, okay, if I know this person is task oriented or fast paced, well, what do fast paced people hate? They hate the person that's like, good morning and welcome to association chat. They're like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I'm already spaced out. And just that awareness is really helpful. It's funny to watch industries kind of fall into that category too. Like fast paced, task oriented, you'll find really task oriented in general, engineering, manufacturing, banking, slow paced, people oriented associations. I mentioned them,
Mm-hmm.
education, healthcare. That would be in the nursing sector,
Mm-hmm.
the actual physician sector, surgeon sector, specialty sector. It's going to be more task oriented.
Right.
Um, Fast paced, people oriented folks, marketing, social media, spas, resorts, hospitality, the people who are like, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good
Yeah.
morning. You often find them as part of their job. They tend to be very fast paced, people oriented.
See, that's so fascinating. What are you guys thinking about it? I'm asking you live. Oh, Jeanette's saying, I'm definitely fast paced and task
Jeanette
oriented.
is direct. She's the
Well,
boss.
I feel like anybody who would probably show up for this particular episode to talk with you and learn from you live probably falls into that category, I'm guessing, because we're all trying to figure out, okay, what's going to be the most effective way that we can connect and get to that, that end result that we're all hoping to get.
For
And
sure.
so Anne says, I think it's super fascinating. Oh, Jeanette and Anne. And I saw Kathy earlier. This is the book club, the Association Chat Book Club
Oh,
showing
I
up.
saw
I
your
see you
new
guys.
one. I
I
saw
see
your
you
new book
guys.
come out, so
Yeah,
I'm going to
yeah.
pick it up.
They get bonus points. You guys all get gold stars today. Okay, so we know our four quadrants, and you're going to be
Mhm.
sharing this in a handy dandy something that we
I've
can
got a
figure out
resource
later.
guide. Yeah,
Okay.
well, what I put together was essentially, I envisioned the way that your viewers and membership would really interact with folks that they're trying to sell. And I
Yeah.
thought it was really in three ways. Email, which is the most
Hmm.
important to me. I mean, we're always communicating. By the
Yep.
way, selling also includes your internal team. How about
Hmm.
selling somebody in the cubicle next to you or in the office down the hall about a great idea that you have? Personally, I
Yes.
am sick of the loudest person in the meetings always getting their way. So I'm very passionate about helping, my folks. But I
Yeah.
put it as email and then also as phone. And then we'll talk about something a little later on. But I created a template for you guys too. You know, Something you'll get on that email guide is, for example, fast paced, task oriented people, they write emails in periods, such as hello, period. Kiki, I'm looking for information about association chat, period. Please send information about being a guest, period. Regards, comma, Rachel. And I don't know about you, Kiki, but I get that email and I'm like,
Cold.
oh,
Yes. Yes.
like, why are you so aggressive? This is a happy place.
I
And
know.
what that is, it's just direct because they're very fast paced, task oriented. They have a job to do. They're not like wasting a lot of time. And to
Right.
reply to that person, this is part of that guide. Reply to that person, 2 words, folks, bullet points. Because here's the secret: fast paced people, we only read the bullet points.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of that information that I'll send to you guys. Also, too, I talk about when you meet people in person, maybe a fast paced, people oriented person. We're huggers. We
Oh
will
yeah.
smush our
Yeah.
bodies into people so fast. And, that's something that's great. But what about the person that, maybe is like, they don't want to hug, but you're trying to figure out if they like you or not?
Yeah.
Slow paced, task oriented people, they love eye contact. If they're looking at you, it might feel intense, but they're not. It's a sign of respect and that's a greeting for them. If they don't care about you, trust me, they will make it known.
I love this. Are you guys getting a lot? I'm already like, I'm just taking notes over here. Liz says, I'm going to think this information through and wonder how this might apply to our members who are typically slow paced, task oriented, and how that affects how they talk about our community and joining. And then Scott says, bullets are huge. Almost no one I know wants to read a novel in an email, not even a short story. True.
Yeah.
And Kathy says, such a great program.
Oh,
Thank you,
Kathy.
Kathy. Yes.
Liz,
So,
I would be interested to know, Liz, what your industry is, and we can talk about that offline. But I will say for slow paced, task oriented members and people, they love frequently asked questions pages. They love as much detail, even if you think it's
mhm.
overkill. And also, too, they love getting an email, and the last thing that you say to them is, and I use this all the time, I look forward to hearing your questions because
Yeah.
they will have them.
Yeah. Yeah.
God knows. And it's not a
I look forward to
reflection of
hearing your
you.
questions.
Yeah, it's not
I
a
lo-
reflection of you. It's that they're so curious.
yes, and what I love about that is that you're saying you look forward to them so they don't have to be they don't have that issue of, oh, I'm going to be annoying or they're going to hate me by the end of this or whatever. You're saying, I look forward to your questions. You're going to have them. And I know that. And I'm looking forward to them.
The attitude changes so quickly when you welcome people in a way that they don't expect. To Scott's comment about the long emails,
Hmm.
I'm not a long emailer, but when you see a long email, that tends to be a slow paced person. And the
Yeah.
first line I always put in those emails is, thank you so much for your time and candor.
Yeah. Oh,
Because they're
yeah.
never acknowledged for the time and care. Guys, spoiler alert, they did not write that long email for themselves because they love to hear themselves talk. Because fast paced people, we pick up the phone or, you'll see us abuse exclamation points and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's
Yes,
funny.
I know, I love it. But what that long email does is that's a gift for you. They
Yeah.
took that time for you. They gave you those background details that you don't really care about most of the time
Yeah.
for you to help you. And when you thank them for that time, to your point, Kiki, nobody thanks them, nobody welcomes them like that. It'll change a relationship in a heartbeat.
Okay. And people are saying mind blown. And I always say that to members. And I especially love to clip newspaper articles to get a message across to slow paced folks. And he was talking about, he'd comment before mail for slow paced with sticky notes. Yeah. Cause that shows that you're caring and thinking about them and taking the time to do that.
And it's not just
Um,
your opinion that's backing you up. You've got proof
yeah.
in the pudding. Task based people need proof.
I've always so when I receive these long emails and we know the people who send them, right? And I mean, beautiful. I feel like I should print them out. Sometimes I do just so I can force myself to like read the whole thing. But I'm a fast emailer. Like I want to just send the like I even have on the bottom of my signature now that, I'm aiming to get across an email in 5 sentences or less on purpose.
Mhm.
So, and if it's more than that, you're going to get an attachment because I'm just like the email should be 5 sentences or less. Um, and so when I get these novels, I often feel guilty because usually my response is like 2 sentences, and I'm
It
like,
never matches.
it never matches. And I feel bad. I feel so guilty. But what I love is this thank you for your time and candor thing is you can use that when you're responding and letting people know how much you appreciate the time that went into that in such a sophisticated and like, I don't know, like caring, gracious way.
It's sincere, you know?
Yeah.
That's one
Yeah.
of the things about I like to say I do sales training for anti-sales people sometimes. I do traditional sales training too that's very focused in, awareness of self like this and
Yeah.
behaviors and empathy. And I love that. I love getting hardcore salespeople on board with it. But when I do this anti-salesperson training, I let people know too. Have you ever gotten an email or sent an email and know that you faked it? Like to
Yeah.
fast-paced, people-oriented folks, if you're slower paced, you might not be an exclamation point abuser, but in our head, we've been taught to use these exclamation points.
Mhm.
Well, what about when they meet you at a conference? This has happened to me.
Right.
People have emailed me. They have abused exclamation points, enjoy with me, and I have met them. And Kiki, they're not a human exclamation point. They faked it.
I
They
was gonna
faked
say,
it.
I'm totally an exclamation point.
Yes,
You
I
meet
am.
me, you're gonna
Yes,
know. And
yes.
you too, right?
And
Okay.
and what's
All
so
right.
cool is that,
Oh my God.
to me, when you do that, I mean, I see Jeanette's exclamation points right there.
Yes.
So Jeanette, welcome. But when you see that and you see that there's a disconnect, that's not good. That's not the kind of trust we're looking to make with
Okay.
members
Yes.
and other people in
Yes.
our industry. We've got to show up as we are. And this is part of that journey with it. I always say what's true. And
Yes.
for example, if you're not an exclamation point abuser, then I want you using two exclamation points in your email. The first one is the first sentence, and the second one is the last sentence. In the first sentence, I want you to tell them that you're excited to hear from them. Great hearing from you, exclamation point. Happy Friday, exclamation point. Thank you so much for your email, exclamation point. Whatever you think is true. I'm not telling you that, wow, it's made my entire day to get this email and you don't feel like that, then don't say that. Like,
Right. Right.
we're
Oh,
not in that place. Hey,
that's my
Gucci.
colleague. Yes.
Yes.
About that.
Hey, Gucci.
Yeah.
But the last sentence of that email should reflect a hope for the future. It could be something like, I can't wait to hear from you. I look forward to seeing you at the conference. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Again,
Yeah.
say what's true and use that exclamation point. And guess what? As a fast-paced, people-oriented person, I will know that you are meaningful and exciting, and I'll feel good, and then the rest of the email can have a bunch of periods or question marks or whatever else you want. Just don't fake it. Just don't fake it.
Don't fake it. And as
Mhm.
soon as you said that, it's like you don't want to have that misalignment between who who you're putting forth that you are, or what your attitude is, and then what the truth is. And that's all part of building trust. That's all part
Mhm.
of making it so that other people can look at you and listen to you and receive messages from you and say,
Yeah.
you know what, that person's a straight shooter. They're honest with me. They are who they are. They say what they mean. Chris
Mhm.
says social media has changed how our emails are structured. Anything more than 3 sentences loses the reader's interest and attention. It's so true. Some people, like if they're that one type of person who really takes the time and that's the way that they like to communicate, they still are out there savoring and taking that in. So,
And I will say to Chris's comment, I totally agree. But
uh-huh.
what I will say is that social media is actually made for fast paced people. Twitter
Yeah.
is made for fast paced people. Instagram, and so 50% of the population, it's a straight split. 50% is fast paced, 50% is slow paced. That's why you see occasionally people write long Instagram caption.
Mhm.
I personally, when I'm invested in somebody, I will read the captions because I'm very people oriented. And Instagram, you might be watching when you have some or looking when you have some time. But I will say social media is really made for fast-paced people. So a lot of slow-paced people, especially depending on your industry. I have a client that's in the lithium business,
Mhm.
and I speak and do team training and keynote with them a lot. And they are on average 60 to 70-year-old white males that think
Yeah.
that social media is quite frankly BS. They're also
Yeah.
very slow paced and task oriented. So, I always like to keep that in mind. They do, they can be very, very task oriented folks. And we pay a lot of attention to social media, but we all know the reality too. Sometimes we can't say stuff in 3 sentences.
So if we take your lithium guys for example, and we say, so they are slow paced, they're task oriented, they think that social media is BS. When we are trying to advocate to them, right? Our approach would be being. So what would our approach be? I should ask you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it really depends on your goals and where
Okay.
you are in your relationship. If it's
Okay.
a first meeting, this is the meeting that you prepare for. You don't wing it and you get right down to business. This
Right.
is pleasantries, then business. And
Mm-hmm.
you stay on business. You're very timely with it. And what you do is these kind of folks tend to be very print heavy. So
Mm-hmm.
you need to share the presentation that you're about to make with them, ideally ahead of time. Always have an agenda for the meeting. They love agendas. Even if
Mm-hmm.
it's a phone call, put together a quick agenda and say, this meeting will be 30 minutes. We will cover introductions, discussion of the upcoming, um, perhaps it's a political lobbying thing. And, we'll review the bill that's about to be passed. We'll talk about the special interests that we have. And then we'll, create a census as well as schedule a follow up meeting about it. Okay. These folks, they like to prepare in as much as possible. So
Mm-hmm.
any way you can do that is great. And the big hack to me when you are speaking with these folks, whether via phone or in person, before you get started. Now, I know a lot of us out there, we prepare a great presentation. Rachel, you just said to prepare. Yes, I did. I'm going to put an asterisk and I'm going to say before we launch into the presentation, Kiki, if you're a slow paced, task oriented client of mine, I want you to get on board with this idea that maybe is controversial or you've never heard before. I
Mm-hmm.
will say something very special. I will say, Kiki, I'm thrilled to be here today and I look forward to presenting. I've actually put a lot of work into what I'm about to share with you. Before I get started, do you have any questions?
Hmm. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you ever notice the antsiness of people when they're in a meeting and they're being talked to, and you can tell that all they're thinking about is, yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but, and you can
Right.
see them Swiss holing your, arguments or ideas
Yes.
already.
Yeah.
Release valve them. Before I get started, do you have any questions? Okay.
I love that.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
so happy. I'm so happy. It's
I
amazing to
love
watch
that.
people. And
Yeah.
people, especially when they're task oriented and slow paced, give them a minute to actually have the questions and communicate it to you. Don't ever say, we're going to cover that. Answer it right
Right.
then and there because it proves you as an expert. It welcomes their question. It releases their stress and their fear. And then what happens is when you go through your presentation, great. At the end, ask for questions again. And then what I always recommend, depending on the level of importance of this and the timeline you have going on, if it is a very large partnership, people always say, let me know if you have any questions. Assume that there are questions, welcome the questions. And what I like to say is, okay, thank you so much for your time today. I'll be honest and say that sometimes the best questions and the most important questions aren't always the first questions that come to mind. So, if okay with you all, I'm going to check in tomorrow afternoon and see what additional questions you have. And I got to tell you, Kiki, people have good questions and it speeds up a decision immaculately. Because what happens is someone's going to be in the shower the next day, someone very important, they're going to be
Mhm.
washing their hair and they're going to think, oh, crap, I should have asked that. And when you welcome that and you acknowledge it, people inherently feel happy and trustful with you.
So that is really something. And Scott's saying that is really smart. Gets questions answered and also gives you another reason to connect with them without selling. That's
Mhm.
exactly what I was thinking is that that's adding a touch point with them that you might not have already had built in there. And it's so smart to add to give people that additional time where they feel where they're building a relationship with you, whether they use that time or not to ask the question, you're saying, I've built this in so that we can have further engagement without being awkward.
Mhm.
You're
And
giving them that space.
I love it too because it covers, a lot of us are walking into rooms or conferences or serving membership or chapters or, partnering with other organizations or and entities that
Hmm.
we don't know all the players that are sitting there. And
Right.
you can't assume that someone's done their due diligence on you or found what you wish they found on you. Sometimes, they might not, dive deep into your bio or your background. And it
Hmm.
gives people the opportunity to be like, so where are you from? Yeah, I mean, that might be
Right.
a curious question that they have. Where are you from? And the underlying idea is, how can I connect with you? Or why should I trust you? Task paced people, they always want to know your background.
Okay.
So, I always like to say I'm a law school dropout and I'm proud of it. And that makes people laugh, but it also lets them know that I'm smart enough to be to have taken a test well and to
Yeah.
have gone into
Yeah.
law school in Villanova, and that's a prestigious school and all that kind of stuff. I did drop out 3 months in. Kiki, could you imagine me as a lawyer?
I
I'd be in
mean,
contempt all the time.
you might be in contempt, but you'd be entertaining as hell.
Thank
So
you. Thank you.
like, uh,
Reality lawyer.
yeah, yeah. So I'm just this is blowing me away and I cannot get over. I was describing you the other day to someone and I was explaining that you are the type of person that no matter what you're doing, I could run into you going to my mailbox or something. And by the time I get back, just through our short exchange, you will have taught something to me that forever changes the way I do something.
Oh,
So just in our short amount of conversation, that we've had and exchanges, I've gotten that. And this is not disappointed at all. It's been just one thing after another. If we're looking at what you're talking about, teaching this framework, teaching about the quadrants, looking at the different types of people and the best ways to communicate with them, and we bring it and we look at how are we selling community and engagement? How does that play into it? Specifically, I mean, in addressing this question about like, does it make a difference to the slow paced, people focused person, how we're presenting it, I guess it does. This concept of community and why they should be like, can you help me out here? I just need a
yeah.
lot of help.
Absolutely. Well, it does. Yes. The
Yeah.
answer is yes,
Okay.
it matters. And yes, if you take, maybe a few tips that I've given today and I'll
Hmm.
continue to give. And of course, I'm open book for any questions you guys have
Yeah.
offline too. But I'll make a caveat.
Okay.
Slow paced, people oriented folks, which by the way, nonprofits and associations are full of, they are the peacekeepers and the loves of the world. They're like a warm hug. You actually don't have to worry about them at all because
Hmm.
they're 38% of the population and they accept everyone else. So it's great.
So
Like
they're good.
they're good.
We're
They'll
solid
take
with them.
whatever.
All
Yes,
right.
they're like, "Kiki, I love you," and they don't care just as long as it's you.
Perfect. Love them.
So you don't
38%
have
taken care of.
done, boom, that's a majority. So when it comes to, reaching out and getting that engagement and community, it does matter. And what I always like to say is, you do keep it short, you keep it fast. I think video is such a great medium right now,
Mhm. Mhm.
for fast-paced people. I will watch stuff. I love Instagram stories for this reason. There's a limit on time.
Mhm.
And it's understood that it's very casual. If you ever follow me on Instagram, you'll see that I'm oftentimes on there without makeup, because it doesn't matter. People are looking for something quick and authentic, not something super complicated. And
Right.
we get wrapped up in our brand ideas, and that's important. But if your members are doing it,
Mhm.
that's a totally different thing. They'll look great, getting your members to talk about, the association, or your initiatives. That would be my wish, is that you identify your fast paced, people oriented members, because those are your biggest advocates. Those are
Okay.
the people. I was recently in New Orleans, and I love working there. I got on an elevator at about 9 in the morning. A tiny old woman had a giant Bloody Mary. I mean, giant, just like huge. So she's got the bacon and the shrimp and the pickled okra, and she's having a gay old time. She's
Yeah.
just partying on. And I said, "Wow, that's a big Bloody Mary." Because I'm fast paced people, I talk to people like
Yeah.
everywhere, right? That's
Yeah.
a sign. And she goes, "Oh, well, I got it down the street at this great place called Razoo's, and you should get it. And they have happy hour from 4 to 7. And guys, I got to tell you, Razoo's should be paying her, because
Mhm.
she's the advocate. Fast-paced, people-oriented folks volunteer information with passion and charisma. They get people on board. That,
Mhm.
to me, is what I see associations oftentimes forgetting to do, is use
Ah.
the members and the people that are huge raving fans. And
Okay.
by the
Okay.
way, you can use other association folks too, that are like, I do association work, and I know that Kathy Horner with NACE does an incredible job, which I
Yeah.
do. I do know she does a great job. But having that peer-to-peer endorsement, and you're like, "Oh, well, I don't really know much about associations, but if this person says ours is really good and this person rocks, then awesome."
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned one of the big signs about identifying who a fast-paced people person who that is, and that's they're talking to everyone. They're the
The
person that's
loudmouth.
like they're the per- ah they're the person who's like in the elevator who's saying, "Hey, that's a nice margarita," or "That's a nice Bloody Mary." Um so what are some of the other signs? How can we start to identify some of these people? And
Yeah.
I'm going to put a pin in this other idea about identifying those fast-paced people as your advocates, because oh my god, strategy right there is identifying them and using them. But how do we
It's
identify
huge.
these folks?
It comes down to, the things that you can find in that guide about email and phone,
Hmm.
and interacting with them. You can tell it, exclamation point abusers, of course.
Yeah.
And what I would say is, I think it's almost safe to say that as members, we probably have a good variety of them. It takes a
Hmm.
lot of people. It takes a village to
Hmm.
run an industry. So
Right.
we're probably going to have multiple of them. And I would say that, as we're getting people on board and we're advocating all of these great member benefits and community opportunities and partnership things, that we just remember the 4 reasons of these behaviors, the 4 reasons that matter to them on why they would join, why they would be active in the community. And to me, that is where it's either ego and visibility, which, by the
Hmm.
way, ego is not a bad thing. I mean, we could go deep why ego is tough and all that, but it's just about this point of pride. It might be, that they want to get visibility so they can move up in their job career. Maybe they're updating their LinkedIn to find a different one, that kind of thing. So what's the opportunity of visibility? If you're advocating stuff, tell me, where will their photos and images be? Who will they have access to? What exclusive opportunities for networking will they have? Um, Oftentimes people will get involved for networking and
Hmm.
community. Those are those fast-paced, people-oriented folks that, spoiler alert, are probably already pretty active in your association.
Right. Right.
Those
I
are
was
the
gonna,
folks that always rise to the top. And they're
well,
like,
there,
"I'll
yeah.
help. I'll talk to people."
because they're looking for
Yes.
that. They're looking
Yeah.
for the opportunity and they're like, haha, okay, I get involved there, then I'm going to be able to
Hmm.
get to interact and meet people and move up and get the visibility.
Yep.
But what are some of the other reasons? Like
Yeah.
what's helping to motivate other folks?
Some people are educationally or theoretically motivated. And
Okay.
so that is really about, like, for example, I love boards. I know for a fact that great boards build incredible and sustain incredible communities,
Yeah.
and bad boards can put us all at risk and our
Mhm.
industry at risk and our sales at risk, like our finances at risk. It's a huge waterfall. And also, too, just general industry mood. You hate it when you see a bad board on this, and the conference numbers are dwindling, and that hurts.
Yeah.
So a lot of people come for theoretical. So when you advocate for a board position, maybe your elections are about to come up and you're recruiting. What will people learn in these positions? I
Right.
personally love treasurers. I think the treasury is a really cool, especially if you work with small business,
Mhm.
but really almost anyone. Most people don't understand a profit and loss statement.
Mhm.
Most people don't understand how to balance a checkbook because the apps do it all for them.
Right.
Most people don't understand about like taxes and things like that. They might have a professional. Well, guess what? If you serve as a treasurer on either a local community chapter or on the national board, you get experience in that, which experience you can take through the world. So,
Mhm.
what is the educational experiences that people are going to get? Another motivator people often maybe forget is honestly just that social connection. And by social, I don't mean networking and friendship, because I think that's really understood. And it's my favorite part of a lot of associations I'm a part of. But from a social perspective, it means the impact of legacy and for
Mhm.
the community as a whole. And that I think is really, really important. I was recently speaking in Toronto to a group, and one of the things that Canada has is they have a lot of regulatory boards. So even for something like wedding planning, this particular group is trying to get regulation around that so that the
Mhm.
government will basically regulate wedding planning because they want to raise the echelon of the industry that they're in.
Right.
That's really interesting, but to me, that's not a motivation at all,
Mhm.
because I don't think regulation can be complicated. But then I understood the person I was dealing with is very socially minded. They don't want
Mhm.
to just get better for themselves or for a job. They want to rise everyone up. The standards are very important to them. And that person happens to be task oriented.
Yeah, that is so fascinating because as I'm thinking about it, I'm realizing that in my own life, the way that I approach things, maybe my motivations have changed. So obviously, people's motivations can change. They don't necessarily stay the same, and maybe it's based on where they are in their lives and their careers, what it is that they're trying to achieve. Because I would say that definitely when I was looking to volunteer and get involved, and sometimes still today, it was probably driven by ego and visibility and stuff. But I'm much more am interested in things like what's the bigger thing that I'm able to do and
For sure.
leave that makes a difference in the world. And
And
so
total permission to change, encouragement to
yeah,
change,
right.
right? Wouldn't it be
Yeah.
boring if we were all the same?
Yeah.
Actually,
It would be.
many, many, many years ago, I went to a leadership conference at the Gaylord in Tennessee, in Nashville. And the speaker there was a gentleman named Greg Casella. And
Mhm.
Greg is a leader and a former national president in associations. And he runs a huge catering company for Silicon Valley. So Google, Facebook, all that stuff uses him. And Greg said something I'll never forget. I brag about it all the time. Um, Greg is a massive introvert. He's slow paced and he's task oriented. And he said that your 20s and 30s are about yourself.
Yeah.
Your 40s are about your profession and your career. And your 50s and beyond are about your legacy
Hmm.
and your industry. And I thought that was powerful because what that showed me was that it might not always work with the age ranges, but that there's going to be different motivators along the way. And his message was you need to be a leader for all those reasons and all those seasons. It's okay. It's okay to have a different motivator. It's okay to be what some might say is self-serving, because it's not. If you think about it, serving yourself makes you able to serve others.
Mhm.
I don't think there's a negative connotation there sometimes, but I welcome the folks that are in it for themselves because honestly, they get it done,
Yeah.
especially if they have a very public job. We've all had those egomaniacs on our boards. I always put them in, or I try to steer them in the most um, public of positions because I know they always show up. They might not always turn in their board reports, full disclosure, but they'll always show up and they'll do a great job from a member facing perspective. And that's my most important motivator.
So I don't want to take us too far away from some of these great, very essential. I feel like you're giving us such good stuff that we're going to be able to continue to use over and over again. But one thing that I know I found, a position I found myself in, is where we're asked to be the advocate or the salesperson for a particular thing. And we're talking about community today, but it could be anything. And we're trying to sell the aspirational version of that thing and not necessarily the reality of what's there right then. So if we apply this to like community, we're trying to sell what it could be rather than what it is.
Mm-hmm.
How do we approach that? Because if we're supposed to be authentic and we're supposed to be straightforward with folks, but I mean, how do we get the right people on the bus if we know that the people on the bus right now, it's just maybe not ones that
Yes.
we want to hang out? You know what I'm
What a
saying?
great
Let's go
question.
there.
What a
Okay.
very
All right.
no BS question. What do you do when you're signing somebody up for a possible suicide mission?
Perfect. Yes.
Yes, for sure. So here's the thing. To your point is, I have to ask a question. Do you
Mhm,
think that creation is fun? Some people do. Some people love creating. And
mhm,
if you do, those are the people for your board or your organization in transition. And if you don't believe that chaos is fun, then I'm going to ask you to find an advocate to sell for you or with you. Because I got to tell you, I'm part of a board right now and I'm the international director of education. It means that, part of my initiatives is that I find great speakers. I negotiate rates for our chapters. I'm a speaker myself. So I understand, my corporate or association clients might pay a very large price tag or a larger price tag, but I always have a huge heart for specific associations or
mhm,
missions. I like to
mhm.
say, I know I told you, if you serve others, I serve you. I
Right.
only want to work really, I typically work in big hearted industries and associations with people who I make the bet care. I want to work with people that care and give a hoot when they show up.
Yeah.
So if you don't think that creating is fun, you are going to have a hard time selling it. Now,
Yeah.
if you do think creation is fun, that's the selling point I want. I want you to
Mhm.
talk about how you can make your mark, how there's no rules.
Mm,
When I signed
mhm.
on to this board, it was very clear to me that the person before, and then the person before, and then the person before, no one did their job. Everything was in shambles, which was great because do you know what I thought, Kiki? Right or wrong, I thought, oh, I'm going to kill it
Yeah, yeah,
with
yeah,
very
yeah,
little
yeah.
effort,
That is
And
so
so if I
funny.
put a little more effort in, then I am killing it. And so I'm thankful for that opportunity. And also too, it's in an area I feel very passionate about.
Mhm,
So I love that creation side of things.
mhm,
Now, getting your advocates on board, this leads to something I don't see associations doing enough of, but it is surveying your past board members with a survey that says, what did you love? What did you learn? How long did it take you every month? And a few other questions. I have a template of this if anyone's interested, but
yes. We
yes,
love
okay.
templates here. We all love
Perfect.
templates.
Perfect. Me too. Me too. So it's one of those things. If you ask them, if I can tell you better than you can tell me. And by the way, referrals, which is what testimonials are, referrals, 5 times more likely people will sign up after someone's referred them.
Mhm,
84% of people trust referrals and testimonials from people they know. 73% of people trust referrals and testimonials from complete strangers, which is why things like Yelp and TripAdvisor are so popular. Are
right.
you doing the same for your board members? Because
Mhm.
I'll tell you, even my worst board positions, I was once fired from a board. I was liberated because I was horrible
Liberated.
at it. I was horrible. And I was liberated in my last 2 months of a 2-year term. And they were like, just go, just go. And I will tell you, it was embarrassing. They moved me into a different position, which was a much better fit. Everyone was relieved, but I can still tell you some things that I learned from that position.
Mhm.
And, even though my ego was bruised for a hot second, I would still say that that board position, it was a programs director position in my local chapter. That position taught me more, that helped me in my career than any other board position that I had. It's not the board position I was best at, but it was the board position that was literally like a boot camp in event
Wow.
planning and vendor relations and knowing the market and all that stuff. And that's not stuff I could buy, but that's not
Mhm.
stuff anyone's ever asked me to tell. But don't you
Mhm.
think when you sign up, I mean, I think of programs and I think, ugh, like I love education. Education's different than programs. I hate the coordination and I'm
Yeah.
in that industry. That's my background is hospitality. But when I think about it, if I had heard somebody like me talk about that, I'd be like, oh, well, I want to learn. I want to be part of
Yeah.
that instead
Yeah.
of being the position that everyone's like, oh, who are we going to find and suck her into this?
Right. I love that. And it's the mindset you have, the experience I and the question, do you think creation or chaos is fun? Such a great question to help define whether or not you're the right person to be talking about this in the
Yeah.
first place.
And
We
it's
have
the truth. Like,
and
I agree. It's not a good to lie about, like, you never want to
yeah,
bamboozle anybody. And by the way, we don't. It's not good. Find that person that voluntells
volatile.
everyone else
Yeah.
ever onto the board. Hmm.
And saying, "This is so smart." I'm always thinking about what I'm going to learn, even in a bad situation.
Hmm.
I think that's a good sign for somebody. If that's what you're doing and you're realizing, "Yeah, this doesn't feel good right now, but what can I take from it?"
Hmm.
We do have a question. How do you sell a community to a person that doesn't know they need one? What's the right
Mm.
approach?
Yeah. Well, I'm always big on questions, to
Mhm,
be quite honest. I mean, getting them engaged. And the reason it seems so simple, but it takes courage to ask questions.
mhm,
So steel yourself up and know that whatever they say is okay. And even if it's flat rejection, but
yeah,
also too, that you're going to be able to handle the question or, handle whatever they toss back. So when asking people, if they'd like to become engaged or kind of selling your association or membership and things like that, I would ask them, the question I love is, if you could wave a wand over, insert your business, your industry, your finances, your stress, your personal life, if you could wave a wand over your business and give it something, and then wave it again and take away something, what would those things be? Because
ooh,
people are going to say what they
ooh,
really need, and they're also going to tell you your biggest problem. Like, for example, Kiki, in
yes.
your business, if I could give you as a speaker, right? If I could,
Yes.
as a speaker, give you something and
Uh-huh.
then also take something away, what do you think that would be?
If you could give me, uh, the way to best connect with the people who would most likely, yeah, the way to best connect with the people who'd be most likely to hire me, that would be the thing I would want. And the thing to take away would probably be, if you could take away all of and this is gonna sound really awful, but it's true. If you could take away all of the false offers or the "Can you do this for free?" stuff, right? Because there's a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if, for example, the association I might be advocating for, I'll give you a few examples. I
Okay.
could be with the National Speakers Association. So, I might say, okay, well, we have a survey. If you're theoretical, if you're education minded, I might say we have a survey that says that 71% of our members gets business from peer members. And we have 17,000 members. This appeals to a people oriented, fast paced person like yourself.
Yeah.
And when you come to our conference, which by the way, you save 33% on if you're a member, that's a fast-paced, task-oriented sale
Yeah.
because they care about the numbers, then
Yes.
this makes a lot of sense for you too. So I just appealed to you as a task-based slow person because I have a survey.
Hmm.
Again, I skip you a little bit. That's with love. From a slow paced, people oriented person. The amount of members that you'll love and like, we have a large membership count. And then, you know, the membership cost totally discounts the huge conference where you get to meet all your friends, where you get the 71 referrals from because the statistics show it. Boom, boom, boom.
I mean,
Full
sold. Yeah,
full
sold.
disclosure, full disclosure, I'm not a member of the NSA. I'm a rebel speaker. I'm not an NSA speaker. And it's
Yeah.
not against them or anything like that. But what about if I'm even selling for an association that's an auxiliary member, like
Hmm.
Meeting Planners International,
Hmm.
MPI? I love MPI.
Yeah.
And as a speaker, you should love MPI too. So one of the problems you had was false offers. What
Hmm.
if I told you that meeting planners, right? They make the decisions of over, we have a combined buying power of $1.2 billion of the world's largest conferences are
Right.
from MPI members. Oh, snap. That's not somebody saying, come speak to my local Kiwanis. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
Like
Right.
these are real folks. So
Yeah.
asking the wand question, it sounds silly. And I see where John puts a great link to questions. I
Hmm.
love that stuff. And I haven't looked at it. So full disclosure, but I will say there's something about adding a little bit of magic because when you talk about a wand, people subliminally think about the fantasy and
Yes.
they tell you things they wouldn't normally tell
Yes.
you if you ask such a direct
Pain point.
question.
Yeah, like, if I hear pain points, I'm in a more business-oriented kind of frame of mind. If I
Yeah.
hear,
And you have to
you
admit that
know
you're in pain,
right,
which is
right,
not
right,
good.
right, and so I feel more vulnerable, but when it's like the magic wand, it's like, "Oh, yeah, let's play." It
Mhm.
feels freeing
Yeah.
somehow.
What do you want to take away and what do you want to get?
And I love so, William, he says, "Asking questions helps to open up the young ones to engage versus being reserved or guarded." Yeah,
Yeah, they don't even know the
I love
questions
that.
to ask. I
Yeah.
always assume that of folks. I think it's our responsibility to be better question askers.
Okay, so I cannot believe this, but we have 3 minutes left, and so,
No.
folks, I don't know about you, but I have just had an absolutely amazing time, and I totally want to, like, get more advice and hear more and more and more, and Rachel, thank you so much for joining us today, I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
When
it's really my pleasure.
when people want to find out more about you, of course, we're going to connect them with more information, but where can they go online to connect with you? Where can they get more information?
Yeah, my website's great from a professional standpoint. I do two things. I do keynote speaking and I do team training a lot of times for associations, conferences, it can be corporate stuff, but I love coming into teams and giving them these kinds of aha moments.
Yeah.
And also doing it from stage too. If you can't tell, my energy is high. My introduction includes a comment about margaritas. I love having a good time. So rachelsheerin.com is the best way. My email is simply hi, at rachelsheerin.com. Please email me. It gives me the most joy in the world to help. Like that's how I know Kiki when we got connected and I learned more about association chat. I'm like, "Oh, come to a place where everyone loves to help other people." Yes, this is my fantasy and you're never bothering me. You are never
Yeah.
bothering me ever. So please email me. And then I do hang out on LinkedIn, Rachel Sheerin, and then my Instagram. If you want to see my cute dog, my hot husband, or just get more of that Rachel Sheerin glitter experience, I'm at rachel.sheerin.
It's true. When I tried to email you the other day, I got you were working with a client and I got the out of office message that you were working with a client. But she included, guys, if there was an emergency or something you really needed to reach her for, that you could text a picture of your dog. And so I took a picture of my dog and I, I said, just because it was unique and interesting. So I can't imagine you should probably create a calendar out of all the pictures you get of people's dogs someday, Rachel. Thank
I would love
you.
that.
Thank you so much for joining us. We will have Rachel back. And thanks to all of you. I hope that you genuinely learned something helpful today that will help you today and every day forward as we look at ways to better connect our members and potential members with community. Please join us next time. And until next time, everyone, keep asking questions to learn every day. As Joseph Campbell once said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. So have a great weekend, everyone. All
Bye,
right.
guys. Bye,
Bye.
Kiki.